Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So we are from the sixth group. We are going to present about how and when is language possible. Before we start our presentation, I'm going to introduce our group member. So there is Nur Yuliana, there is Dia Istiqomah, there is Faris Rafi Fitranur, there is Makfira Nurdianti, there's Nurul Permata Dinda, and the last is Ria Safitri. Okay, I will start the presentation. First is what is language. Nurul Permata Adinda is going to present about that. So time is yours.
So, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Nurul Permata Dinda, and first of all, I would like to thanks for the time that you have given me to explain a little bit about what is language. So, before we jump up to the main point of this material, we need to know what is language. So, language is a system of symbols and rules that is used for meaningful communication. A language uses symbols which are sounds, gesture, or written character that represent object, action, events, and ideas. As we can see in this slide, the function of language include communication, the expression of identity, play, imaginative expression, and emotional release. I think that's all from me. Thanks for the time.
Okay, next is I'm going to explain about language defined by the experts.
Okay, so thank you for the time. So to make you more understand about language, so I will explain the language defined by the experts. So the first expert is Henry Swift, and he says that language is the expression of ideas by means of speech, sounds combined into words. Words are combined into sentences with combination answering to that ideas into thoughts. And the second is there is Dumpers, and he said that a language is a set rules enabling speakers to translate information from the outside world in sound. So, based on the definition of a language that I already explained, we can say that language a means of communication. But if the definition of a language is used in a study of language, we must involve the other means of communication that are not categorized as a language. If we regard a language as consisting of sound, the fact shows that the other means of communication may use sound as its medium. In short, means of communication known as a language must have some characteristics that do not belong to the other means of communication. I guess that's all from me.
Okay, next Ria Safitri is going to explain about characteristics of language.
Okay, before I explain about the characteristic of language, there are a few characteristics of language here. The first one is a language is a systematic. The second one is a language is said to be arbitrary. The third one is a language is social. The fourth one is a language is spoke. And the fifth one is a language is produced or creative. And the last one is a language is complete for this native speaker. So I will explain some of them. The first one I will explain a language is a systematic. Since a language is said to be a system, it must be systematic in nature. A systematicness of language can be seen of the fact that, take an example, if we regard a language as being a made up of sound, we find out that only certain sounds occur in any one language, that this occur in certain language in certain regular and predictable patterns. the idea of systematicness of language, as if it's found in the agreement of word implied the idea of predictability. All human language have their own certain character. This is to say, for instance, that the certain language, say in Bahasa Indonesia or English, has their own system. The second one is a language is said to be arbitrary. A language is said to be arbitrary. This means that it is firstly created on the basis of social agreement. This is relation. There's no reasonable explain, for instance, why a certain four-footed domestic animal is called dog in English, asu in Javanese, or anjing in Indonesia. Giving a name of the animal is really based on the agreement among the member of the social group. And the third one is a language is spoken. Basically, a language is always spoken. This statement implied that all people the world over, regardless of their race or ethnic group, always speak a language. This means that they always have a way of communicating ideas by using sound that are produced by their speech organ. Human language can be said to be an oral auditory communication system. Why? Oral auditory communication system has many advantages over other possible means of communication. And the last one that I will explain is a language is a complete for its native speakers. A language is a part of human culture. Best it's used for establishing and maintaining social relations. It's used for extending human culture. A language is complete for its native speaker to express their own culture. Okay, sorry, I will continue. So a language is a complete for this native speaker to express their own culture. If a language is regarded as a system of symbol, it can be used as constitutive, cognitive, expressive, and evaluative symbol. A constitutive symbol refers to a symbol of human belief to God or supernatural power. For instance, human beings to pray to God by using a language. A cognitive symbol refer to symbol created by human being to recognize and introduce human knowledge about their environment. For instance, they create some terms that represent something existing in their surrounding. People in South Kalimantan recognize some terms of water transportation, such as jakung, klotok, and ketinting, and etc. While Javanese people recognize some terms such as pari, gaba, beras, and nasi. Meanwhile, English people know them as rice. An expressive symbol refers to a symbol used by human beings to express their emotion. And the last one is an evaluative symbol refers to a symbol used by human being to state symbol good or bad, honors or dianas, and the like. I think that's all for me. Thank you.
Okay, next I'm gonna explain about how is language possible. How is language possible? There is remarkably little agreement regarding how and when human language may have emerged. This is partly because there is remarkably little agreement among scholars regarding what it means to have language. There is even disagreement over whether humans learn language or whether they acquire it. In addition, there is considerable difference of opinion regarding whether human language emerge all at once. There are two important reasons why there is so little agreement on these issues. One reason is that it's extremely difficult to design ethical experiments with living human children to pinpoint the ways in which they learn or acquire language. The other is that it is impossible to find language itself in the fossil record. So we are limited to observation, analysis, and speculation, using everything we know about anthropology and even drawing on related fields such as neurology, biology, psychology, and cognitive science to try to solve these puzzles. In spite of this limitation, it has recently become possible to make some educated guesses about possibilities and probabilities. Okay, I think that's all from me. Next is Makira Nurdianti going to explain about theories about language beginning.
Okay, thank you. I will explain about theories about language beginnings. The subject of language origins was an especially popular topic of discussion in Europe during the 1700s and 1800s. Philosophers and linguists proposed a sort of fanciful theories and presented and defended the vigorously. They suggested, for example, that language began as people imitate animals' calls, bow, wow, and then they suggested that language began as people express pain or emotion. They suggested that language began as people noticed that certain object has unique imitable sounds of their own. And they suggested that language began as people worked together. They even suggested that language began as people agree among themselves about which sounds ought to represent which items and ideas or social contract. These theories were all speculative, however, and there really was no way to prove or disprove any of them. I think that's all for me. Thank you.
So next, Nur Yuliana gonna explain about when is language possible.
Okay, so the last material is when is language possible. So language is already hardwired into the human brain birth. In this view, a genetically built-in core grammar provide a universal set of rules. Language hardwired in brain. Language acquisition device help with adjustment, compare specific language with the core grammar and help children to make the necessary adjustment as they acquire specific language. And many argument that the origin of language probably relate closely to the origin of modern human behavior, but there is a little agreement about the implication and directionality of this connection. So I think that's all for me. Thank you.
So, okay, thank you. So I think that's all for our presentation. Thank you so much for the attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.